Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Turn the mic up some. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. There we go. Now we got it. Peace. Now we got some mic. Now we got the mic rolling. So put that on pause for a second. Now that I got the microphone rolling, how y'all doing tonight? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna key my intro music before I get everything started. But if you're joining in on the chat, let me know. Peace and power, comrade to Afro Marxists for being in the room. And let me go ahead and share my screen and get this thing rolling tonight. Here comes the intro.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.
Okay, how y'all doing out there tonight? That's my little intro that I like to play. I made it up myself, so I feel a little proud about that. But what's going on, everybody? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective, coming to you live on YouTube, about to go live on TikTok as well. We're gonna see if we can get these TikTokers to jump on over and join the chat room on YouTube, but we shall see. Not too sure. They don't usually like to leave their platforms, but we're going to get it rolling anyhow, one way or the other. I may be taking a couple of pauses in the middle of this program tonight because I'm trying to keep a couple of different platforms live and direct. I got some folks that I'm trying to engage a similar conversation as on Facebook that I'm having with us here on YouTube. Don't know if this is gonna work. Afro Marxist. If you stick around, I do have a guest portion on the show. I will be providing a link for people to join in, or a guest invite, or I don't know what it's called on different platforms, but I will be letting people come to the stage or whatever it is that they say. So again, everybody, if you're here on TikTok, shout out to you. Thanks for joining in. This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. Would love for you to jump on over to youtube.com/the proper perspective. And at least hit the like button and click that bell for the notifications. And then you can go on back on over to TikTok if that's where you prefer to watch this. But I do at times share my screen and throw up some information. So it would behoove you, if you're really jumping into this thing, if you really want to join in, then come on over to YouTube. Let's see what's going on. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, we're going to talk about, let me see what the title of the show is. Pan-African power moves. Pan-African power moves. No more begging the West. No more begging the West. Now, hopefully that's a pretty clear indication of where I lean and where I'm going with the ideology, so to speak. But we shall see. I'm trying to get real with everybody tonight. Now I got a couple of I think I got a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not too sure. I've been running and rolling. I've been ripping and running. So I've had a couple of little problems in getting everything together tonight, but I digress. Let me get focused. So like we can currently see, we know now that the world is shifting. If not culturally, then at least socioeconomically and geopolitically, there is a shift going on right now. This is not the time to be sitting around debating whether pineapple belongs on pizza. But just for the record, to be straight, it does. But African Americans, especially. Now, when I say African Americans, or rather, I'm aware that it can be a tricky term. Most times people say African Americans, and they're only talking about us black people who are foundational or descendants of the African slave trade here in America. And sometimes that's who I'm talking about. But other times I'm talking about Africans in the West, because America is not just the contiguous 48, even though orangutan likes to think it is. So sometimes when I use African American, I try to clarify if I'm talking about Canadians, because they are African Americans. I'm talking about those of us who are black in Mexico, those of us who are black in the Caribbean, those of us who are black in South America. This is all African American in a geopolitical global world. Now, again, in a contiguous 48 Uncle Sam system, I don't necessarily mean all of them, but I will try to specify and clarify when I bring the term up. Shout out to Kaleem Shabazz for joining in. He says Pan-African vibrations. I'll put that on the screen. Let's see. Pan-African vibrations are the key, as we need to unite the continent so that we can live as well as our ancestors. That's a very powerful statement. I agree with that. We do need to unite. And I hope that I'm providing some information tonight that will at least push you towards the idea of thinking positively or thinking favorably in reference to Pan-Africanism. I know, especially in these YouTube streets, it's a whole lot of negative Nancy's around here, and they getting their YouTube paychecks off of creating this negative ideology around Pan-Africanism. But I ain't with that train, so I don't hop aboard that one. But I do want to say, African Americans, yeah, us, the contiguous state Uncle Sam type people. If you got a passport, it's the blue passport people. We are now in a prime position, whether we know it or not, to stop playing the perpetual underdog, especially in someone else's game. We are in a prime position. It may not always seem like it, especially with all of the mess that orangutan is throwing out. But we are literally in, they say necessity is the mother of invention. We're in a prime position to stop playing the perpetual underdog in someone else's game and start flipping the board altogether. Flip it over. Turn it upside down. Kick it down the steps. And now you may be familiar with this. It's a phrase, it's a saying. We always say, what they say, right? They say when the West catches a cold, we get pneumonia. When the West sneezes, we get the cold, we get the flu. Now, if we play our cards right and we figure out ways to create our own independent system, try to use my words carefully, because I know there's some things that can really get out of the way. Let's see why. Let me see. But if we use if we play our cards right, we could create an independent system, even though we are still over here, that can work to our benefit without having to depend on table scraps from the West. So before I go further, let me see. Throw this. Kaleem Shabazz says, "Why don't you use the term diasporic African? That is inclusive. We are one." I like that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I just try to be difficult a little bit. And I say that because, like, I one of the classes I used to teach, I used to bring this up. And because I've had so many people swear up and down that African American can only identify those of us who fall into this FBA category. And because there's so many African Americans that I have ran into, whether in personal life or because I was teaching certain classes, and even just online conversations and debates and battles and all this other stuff, who they're, with people beginning to try to use new terminology to describe us, that I'm like, I'm just gonna start throwing everything into the pot. So sometimes I'll use African American, sometimes I'll use diasporic African. I think even Dr. Umar says American Africans, and other people say Africans in America. So like we haven't, it's not like we've had like we ain't had no convention to say what's the one term or how we're going to use this. So everything just gets thrown about a little bit. I ain't mad at that. I just try to use them all and then clarify who exactly I'm talking about. But since I'm talking about Pan-Africanism, and before we really download and get knee deep into this thing, I want to remind us that because we are African people, we come from Africa, we come from West Africa in particular. And I do believe that it is appropriate for us to pay homage to the cultures from which we come, uphold the culture that we have created, and stand on the shoulders of giants. And when I say that, one of the things that I mean by that is we should be looking back at our proverbial wisdom to help lead us and guide us on our journeys. And I say all of that to say the Akan people in Ghana, from whence we come, or at least some of us, they have a proverb that says, if the rhythm of the drum changes, the dance must also change. And so this is in a nutshell what I'm talking about. If the rhythm of the drum changes, the dance must also change. So we cannot simply sit in this corner of earth and proclaim ourselves to be dedicated to the Uncle Samisms of ideology, while Uncle Sam is steadily going down, down, down. They try to make it seem as though they're not imploding. They try to make it seem as though they're not exploding. But with the very rise of BRICS, and I hope y'all know what BRICS is, but with the very rise of BRICS, we can see that the West is, or at least the American West, is at least on the cusp of a downward spiral. So we need to change our dance. So the world economy is shifting. We got BRICS that's really becoming exceedingly powerful, more powerful than I believe even they thought, because there are so many countries trying to join, because everybody's trying to get away from all of the tentacles and all of the game changes that go on with American politics. So BRICS, ECOWAS, it's all coming to the front. We don't need to be sitting on the sidelines during this transition. So now let me see. Kaleem Shabazz, shout out. That is it. Play our cards right. But so far we haven't created anything. We are not committing to the vision of Garvey, who had his greatest success in America. We have many terms. Okay, we have not successfully, continually maintained the success, the strategies, the goals of Garvey. Not on a major level. I wish that we had. There are some of us, there are some Garveyites that are still alive and kicking. There are some Garveyites that are creating their own, I shouldn't say creating, maintaining the Garvey organizations. They're not necessarily at the forefront of things, but they are doing some work. But because they're not at the forefront, it does make it a lot harder for everybody to see the value in Pan-Africanism, the value in Garveyitism. But we need to figure out ways to make that more relevant, more popular, more known, so that we can build on it as a collective. So, like I said, if we don't adjust our strategy, if we don't change the dance, especially after we've seen, known, recognized that the drum has changed, the patterns, the beat of the drum has changed. If we don't change our dance, we're going to get left behind. Now, we've already been left behind with a whole lot of things that go on in this country. We do not need to continue getting left behind. We need to pick up the pace. And so what do I mean by that? Now imagine this. African Americans, and right now I do mean the Uncle Samites, the foundational Black Americans. I'm not talking about the entire diaspora. I can't speak on the entire diaspora when it comes to this particular thing. So us African Americans, us ADOS, us FBA people, y'all know I hate those terms, but they do clarify a little bit. But I ain't with the hate train that they be jumping on. But African Americans, imagine if we were not working, living, strategizing like some neglected demographic, begging for a seat at America's dysfunctional table. That's the like that. So that's the vision that I kind of try to embrace. We can have a strategic economic playing field. We need to be strategic economic players linked directly to BRICS if we play our cards right. More importantly, even if we don't want to link up with BRICS, maybe that's too much. We can link up with West Africa. We can link up with ECOWAS, the ECOWAS. I'm saying it wrong. We can link up with the ECOWAS organizations. We can link up with the Alliance des États du Sahel. And if you don't like French, because I don't, the Alliance of the Sahelian states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in particular. You know, there's ways for us to build a platform, to build strategies where we can create dual citizenship programs, heritage citizenship programs. We can work on getting rid of the visa process for the African American or the diasporic African. So these are not hype dreams. These are very real things that can get done. It's a strategy. And it's time we move more accordingly towards manifesting these things. Now I'm gonna pause for a hot second. Colleen Shabazz says Garvey was a Black nationalist and a Pan-Africanist, which is a good strategy. But we are not joining organizations, which is key. This is true. We are not joining organizations, not in mass. Now I'll be the first to tell you, we should be joining organizations, but I'll also be the first to tell you I haven't found too many that I can join. Now I've walked a few paths. I've walked a few roads, and I've made some attempts at joining a few organizations. I've never been able to see eye to eye with any of the ones that I've worked with, so I haven't been able to join. But we still need to be joining some. I'm gonna pause for 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I can't stand when stuff like that happens. But life be life in everybody. So shout out to everybody joining in on TikTok. I'm trying to read your names. Wacky Boy, Bumpy Potato, Dizzy Dabs, Ty C. Kelly, Orendal, Wholesome. I'm not going to be able to read everybody's name. I am apologizing for that. But shout out to everybody joining on TikTok. I really would appreciate it if you take a moment on TikTok to jump on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective and give me a like. Give me a like and a subscription on YouTube. But as I was saying, I want us to talk about real power. I want us to talk about real power. Something we can actually use in our everyday lives. Not the feel-good fantasy camp that a lot of YouTubers are selling. You know what I mean? You know, they got folks hooting and hollering about being indigenous to America, which we are not. They got people denying that the Ma'afa, the African Holocaust, even occurred, which it did. You know, and at the same time, they're trying to play political games. What would I say? They kissing up to the conservatives and the Republicans and the MAGAs, trying to play reparations gatekeeper like a bouncer at a VIP club, spending more time checking names on some imaginary freedmen's list for the Book of Negroes than actually working to get reparations, even though they use it as a political football. And I take issue with that. So let's be real. If they put half as much energy into actually securing the check that they do arguing over who deserves the check, we might actually have those checks. Just like those fake Doge stimulus checks that they keep throwing out at everybody like a carrot on a stick. So I don't want to deal with the fake political gamesmanship about reparations. Now, let it be known, I do fervently believe in reparations. I do fervently believe we are owed reparations. I just don't think that we are doing the things politically we need to do in order to secure them. And I may bring this up again later, but Malcolm X was the one who said, our only shot at real liberation, and I think there's a difference between liberation and freedom, but our only shot at liberation is to take our cause, to take our struggle, to take our fight, to take our demands to the United Nations. He said that as long as we remain standing for, fighting for, requesting Uncle Sam, we're not going to get it. I mean, how are you going to get a thief? How are you going to convince a thief to give you back what he stole? How are you going to convince somebody who did you wrong that they should do you right? They don't have right in them. But if you go to the governing body for all nations, then you could get some justice. So again, let me see. Kaleem Shabazz says, AES, that's the Alliance of Sahelian States, is key. We not have our own currency in West Africa, so Africans are doing work. We now have our own currency in West Africa, so West Africans are doing work. They are definitely doing the work, especially in the Sahel. Now, but let me sort of slightly correct you on something. Like, all of the African countries have their own currency. So let's just be clear. All African countries have their own currency. What the Sahelian states have done is decide that they're going to create a new currency that can circulate inside their own three countries. Now, that's revolutionary, and that's to be commended. But they all have it. Ghana has its own currency. Senegal has its own currency. Gambia has its own currency. Now, perhaps ECOWAS, if they're going to remain if they're going to remain a reliable organization, because to some extent the jury is a little bit out, especially once the three Sahelian states left. But perhaps they need to beef up their own internal systems and create a currency that works for the rest of those West African nations. But to some extent, that's neither here nor there. To some extent, that's putting a carrot before the horse. As far as I'm concerned, we're not there yet. This one is not backed by the franc. True. They did not back their new currency by the franc. So like I said, they have created a new currency, but again, that's all well. I'm not saying anything negative about that. I'm just saying all African countries have their own currency. They do need to figure out ways to back their currency with their own rare earth minerals, their own products. And shout out to Afro Marxist, who says, yes, indeed, Gaddafi wanted one currency for the whole continent. Yes, indeed. There's been a lot of African leaders who have been pushing that at different times over history, historically speaking, I should say. Gaddafi was probably one of the last remaining vocal, hardcore Pan-African promoters. And we know the West had all of their bloody, dirty hands in getting rid of him. And yes, indeed, that is revolutionary. So, like I said, the Western powers are showing their age. Or let me move on to this new little segment. Do not stand in a place of danger. Do not stand in a place of danger, trusting in miracles. Do not stand in a place of danger, trusting in miracles. This is a Yoruba proverb from Nigeria. Once again, those are the people who, from whence we come. There's a certain amount of us that have Yoruba DNA or heritage, if you prefer that term. Some of us have Akan DNA and heritage. Some of us have Igbo DNA and heritage. And so I like to point these things out because a lot of times, like 20, 30 years ago, it was a little bit more appropriate. Or up to about 20 or 30 years ago, it was a little bit more appropriate when we as Black people said, that famous line from the Public Enemy song, once we were brought here, we were robbed of our language, robbed of our culture. We lost our religion, our God. Like, yeah, that's all true. But in this modern day information age, it's time for us to take some of these things back into our own hands. Yes, they stole a lot from us, but we are now in a position, like I said earlier, to take these things back. We can take back our culture. We can take back our religions. We can take back our God. We can take back our names. Now, I know that may piss some of us off. Some of us are so addicted to the West, they can't even imagine. Would you be give up my name? Hey, I ain't saying you got to. I'm just saying. There's some of us that want to do that. I encourage you to, if that's what you have done. Like my name is Shabazz. Nah, my parents didn't give me that name. I took, I took my own name based on some things that I read, learned, studied, and admired. But I digress. The Western powers are showing their age. They say empires only last for about 200 to 250 years. We're coming up on 250 years. So there's some things that have to change regardless whether you want them to or not. Afro-Marxist says Kwame also talked about it. Yes, indeed. I need that. I need to pull that book up. But Kwame Nkrumah was definitely a Pan-Africanist. And he talked about the need for Pan-Africanism. He was one of the leaders that sort of like spearheaded the idea of African Americans and diasporic Africans from Canada down to the bottom tip of South America to come home, to come back to Africa. So again, what we got to realize is these Western powers are showing their age. We're coming up on 250 years. Most empires don't make it past that. They start to crumble. Now, the crumble may be quick or the crumble may be slow, but the crumble is coming. I think it was Elijah Muhammad that wrote the book Babylon is Falling. And shout out to all my Rastafarian brothers because they've been chanting Babylon is Falling. Let's see, Afro-Marxist tunes in. Some of us practice the traditions of the Yoruba tradition. Ashe, Asheo, Ashe, I say. That's salute for real. I got you. I follow you. He said, Afro-Marxist says, I have it as well. Emil Cabral. Yeah, that's another powerful brother. I was going to try to cover him on one of my shows. Let's see. But like I said, 250 years, empires crumble. America's not the global shot caller that it used to be. It's trying to make the world believe it's still the shot caller. But especially with orangutan at the helm, there's a whole lot of stuff falling to the wayside. Europe is realizing that they got to distance themselves. They distanced themselves last time orangutan was in office. Because orangutan go in like a bull in a china shop and just start destroying stuff. And the rest of the world be like, okay, well, we're going to have to, they recognize that they got to dance to the beat of a new drum. They recognize, like that proverb said, that the beat has changed. We got to change the dance. It's us African Americans that's like, what? What you mean change? Why I got to change? So while Europe is getting economically distanced or getting prepared for it. Look at what Canada's doing. Canada's like, okay, y'all want to do that? We got you. We'll just cut stuff off. We don't need you. We don't need you that bad. We would love to stay in business with you, but if you're gonna do this kind of thing, we're gonna change the dance. And Canada's like, okay, we sell you guys electricity. We ain't got to sell it to you. We ain't even gonna play the tariff game. They could have just said, we'll just keep playing the same tariff game and we'll charge you even more. They said, how about this? We just don't give you none. How you gonna fuel your city now? That's changing the dance. So while BRICS is out here making money moves, BRICS is out here stacking gold, stacking uranium, platinum, cobalt, restructuring global power, getting off the American dollar. What are we doing? Now, I don't want to hear, well, we just a group of people. We just a population. We just a community. We're not a nation. That's my point. Malcolm X said we exist as a nation. We just don't know it. We just don't act like that. We just don't behave that way. It's time for us to start elevating this type of consciousness. We exist as a nation. How many times have you heard the Black people's spending power conversation? That spending power that we have, yes, it's different, but that spending power we have is equivalent to a national budget. We have to figure out how to devise a system so that we can control, or so that we can channel some of that money back into bettering our own selves, bettering our own communities. We don't have to remain stuck at the table waiting for the scraps from the West when we have such tremendous spending power. We're still here talking about incremental change. The days for incremental change are over. It is time for radical change. We can't seriously, we can't honestly be thinking, well, we'll just keep pedaling along until the next election. The next election ain't going to be that much different if there's going to be a next election. Y'all know orangutan is saying we don't have to vote no more. How you going to get him out of office if he don't want to leave? How you going to get him out? You can't stop him now. You can't stop him from shutting down government agencies. So how you going to stop him? How you going to force him out of the White House? Shout out, let me see. Yeah, Afro Marxist says you need to read Frantz Fanon. Skunk of the earth. You need to read Frantz Fanon. This is absolutely true. What is the one continent that can survive all by itself? Africa. Africa don't need nobody. Everybody needs Africa. China is flying over there. China is helping them. We think China is helping them rebuild and build up some infrastructure. But China's doing that because China needs Africa. They're giving better deals because they see the pimping that America is doing, and they saying, okay, I ain't got to hit you like that, but I'm gonna still hit you. But Africa don't need nobody. So all of this, sitting on the wayside, sitting on the bleachers, hoping for incremental change, we need to figure out ways to develop organizations that can funnel our energies into more solid Pan-African efforts. So I hope what I'm getting ready to do is lay out some of those solid frameworks. I hope I have some examples of realistic pathways for how this would work in practice, in practical terms. So I want to talk about a few solutions, is what I'm trying to say. Shout out to Moses Garcia. Shout out to Bumpy. Oh, the Bumpy Potato, Lady Justice on TikTok. So solutions. If we truly embrace this Pan-African ideal, if we embrace it in a tangible way, in a strategic way, we wouldn't just be spectators in global economics. We'd be power players. Collectively speaking, I'm not talking about each individual. Rugged individualism has been the death knell of African culture, whether it's in the West over here or on the continent. Rugged individualism has never helped African people. We need to be figuring out ways, instead of waiting on a reparations check. Again, I know we deserve it. I know it is owed to us, but we ain't even putting in the work on that, especially when you got a whole bunch of people telling you, don't trust the Democrats. Now, I don't like Democrats, but it's an undeniable fact that the Democrats is the only party that's even put up any legislative proposals for reparations. It ain't the right proposal. It ain't the best proposal. It ain't a strong proposal, but there's never been a Republican that has introduced a proposal for reparations. And we're not fighting for that. We are constantly trying to figure out how to ditch the Democrats. Not that they don't deserve it, but if you ditch the Democrats, what party are you going to work with? You cannot work with the Republicans to get reparations. So if you ditch the Democrats, who are you going to work with? You better, okay, build your own party. Build your own party. And how really realistic is that? We hardly want to do the work just to represent for the Democrats. How many of us are going to actually put in the work to help build a political party, an independent political party? I spoke before about the hip hop political party. Even Diddy was trying to build a hip hop political party. And I know he's, the talk of the town now. But instead of waiting on reparations checks that ain't in the mail, we should be securing trade routes. That's what Garvey did. He secured a boat, he secured a trade route, and he made plans to make moves. We should be securing citizenship pathways. Even Kojo Boris stepped out of his Hollywood persona and began working on ways for African Americans to get citizenship. Now, he was specifically working on Ghana, but there's been other West African countries. Even Burkina Faso has come out. Even Kenya has come out to say we need some work together. We need some planning. We need some passport, visa pathways and for citizenship and etc. But we just want to sit over here in America like it's all good, while every day we get new reminders of the microaggressions and the police brutality. Is it that we only believe that this is our fate? This is as best it can be? This is as good as it gets? No, we need to be working on economic policies that tie us directly to Africa's rising economies. And you know what they say? Who is they? The Wolof from Senegal. The Wolof people from Senegal say a bird will always use another bird's feathers to feather its own nest. A bird will always use another bird's feathers to feather its own nest. Now that's kind of like a double-edged sword, if you ask me. What does that mean? It means we must use our resources. We must use our resources. We must use our networks. We must use our trade relationships to build wealth instead of relying on white, instead of relying on Western, instead of relying on American gatekeepers. Now I'm going to break this down for you. But before I get into it, let me see. Afro-Marxists. I may be missing some people, but let me see. Afro-Marxist says we have always had a groupthink mentality. Yeah, to some extent, this is true. Now, whether you feel like that's a good thing or bad thing, I think it's a good thing, but I think it has some bad components, some elements that may not be good. And Kaleem Shabazz says groupthink means unity. That's why I think it's good. Groupthink means unity. We have to have the unity. Now, once you get united, you got to make sure y'all going in the right direction. You can be united and doing the wrong thing. We need goals and targets. We are spending energy we need to work with the hip hop party. We need goals and targets. This is true. We need goals and targets in general. And if you're going to build a hip hop party, at least in theory, I'm with you. And I will do what I can. I will work with you within the confines of all, life be lifing. And whether or not the goals are fully, fit within my own personal strategies and plans. But I believe in it. I believe in the idea of it. You see, Khalil Shabazz said we're not looking at Gaddafi enough. He is the most key African leader right now. I don't know about all that. I mean, Gaddafi dead, so I don't know how you mean that. Ibrahim Traore is like the remanifestation of Gaddafi and Thomas Sankara. He's doing the work of Pan-African unification. But okay, let me see. Afro-Marxists. Benin just put out free citizenship for people of the African diaspora. So again, you see there is a growing movement. If I could use a German word, which I usually hate, but if I can use a German word, there's a zeitgeist. There's a spirit in the air that's moving and coming along. The West African nations are recognizing that they want to reconnect with us, or at least those of us who want to reconnect. Even Garvey said, I have no desires to take every black person back to Africa. Some of you are no good. Some of you are worth nothing over here. You're being worth nothing over there. Garvey said, I only want 10,000 willing and able to go back. Now, whether you feel good or feel bad about the some of you are no good part, I mean, I'm not misquoting him. I don't think. If I am, please, correct me if I am. But the fact remains, everybody doesn't have to go back. You don't have to go back physically. You don't have to go back mentally. But you can see there are groups of us over here in the West that want that reconnection. There are groups, there are countries over there on the continent that want that reconnection. We need to figure out how to do this. Now, I got one way for us to do this. There's a Zoom call tomorrow. I hope I get the link, because if I get the link, then I'm going to try to broadcast it live on my own channel or something. But there's a Zoom call tomorrow with, I believe it's the African Union, about this reconnection in a very real and realistic and practical way. And I'll bring it up a little bit later. But like I said, so a bird will always use another bird's feathers to feather its own nest. And that's what we need to do. Now, let me just say, like I said earlier, I know everybody ain't going to go back. I know everybody can't go back. That's not what this is about. So I hear you. What about the folks who don't want to go back, or who can't just hop on a flight tomorrow and lift off? And some people, even though they can, they may be a little too scared to go right now, because it seems like planes are dropping out the sky every other day. I would challenge that perception. I don't necessarily think that we have more airplane problems. I think they're just deliberately telling us about them this year. I think we had planes driving out the sky last year. They just didn't report on them. But so for folks who can't just hop on a flight, that's exactly why I'm saying this movement has to be bigger than individual travel. Take that off the screen. I'm talking about infrastructure. Political and physical infrastructure, building institutions, creating policies, and creating networks that allow us to benefit even from right here in the US. If we gonna stay We need to stay in a unified, solidified, safe space. The Republic of New Africa. Look it up. Afro-Marxist says, Africa for the African, Marcus Garvey. Yes, indeed. And I do believe Idi Amin said the same thing. Khalil Shabazz says, if you haven't read the Green Book, this is about Gaddafi. Gaddafi formed his own system, which is key to its direct democracy with popular congresses, representation, is undemocratic. The others just follow the same system in a way. Okay, I think I follow that. So read the Green Book, or at least flip through the pages and get familiar with the Green Book. He has his own invented system of direct democracy that seems to work, or at least it was working for him while he was alive. It was working for him until they killed him. And they only killed him because he said, I'm not gonna keep playing this American dollar system. I'm gonna create my own monetary system. And that's when they got him. So don't be fooled. Any type of reconnection to Africa in a real way, you are setting yourself up to be a target. But it still has to be done. Martin knew he was a target. He still did his work. Malcolm knew he was a target. He still did his work. Black-owned businesses. Here's one of my, okay, let's get into this realistic, everyday, practical, pragmatic example that I was talking about. Black-owned businesses. Why should they have to beg and borrow and plead for space on Target and Walmart shelves and then hope we don't get mad as a general population and feel like it's time for us to boycott? And now they want to be crying because if we boycott, they hurt. Why? Because they're stuck in the American arena. We haven't built any platforms. We haven't built any systems where we can sell our items, our goods overseas. And in that, it's not just Africa. Like I said, the diaspora as a whole. Why can't we create systems where we can sell? If you have these businesses, you can sell in Jamaica, you can sell in Mexico, you can sell in Haiti, you can sell in Barbados, and so on and so forth. You can sell in Brazil. Then, if African Americans in the U.S. decide that Target got to get boycotted, it may be a dent, but it ain't the end of your livelihood. It ain't the end of your revenue stream. So we got to think about global systems. Because if you think about global systems, then you have direct trade agreements with African distributors. With Africans, we can be selling cosmetics to them and they can sell them back to us. We can sell textiles to them and they can sell them back to us. It's a two-way street. Consumer goods in a market of over 1.4 billion people on the continent, where blackness isn't the niche, it's the standard. Thomas Sankara, yes, indeed. Thomas Sankara was the remanifestation of Pan-Africanism. Yeah, they killed him too. Like I said, now this, Pan-Africanism is, it's a lofty goal. It's a difficult challenge, and it's wrought with danger. But it's still the best plan we got. And we've tried all the other plans. We've tried integration. We've tried letting ourselves get burnt up in the melting pot of America. Look what it's gotten us. We might as well go for the gusto. So again, you look over here, food insecurity and supply chain dependency could be flipped on its head. Food insecurity and supply chain discrepancy, deficiency could be flipped on its head. We don't have to just sit around and depend on American farmers or American food chains. We need these global systems. And and it's not as though it may be something new for us as Black people, but it's not something new to the world. So we wouldn't really be reinventing the wheel. We would be taking a wheel that already exists and refining it and repurposing it. They already got boats in the waters bringing stuff left and right. We just don't own any. We just not regulating any. That's what we need. We don't need another billionaire buying a private jet. We need a billionaire that says, I'm gonna open up an airline. Marcus Garvey wasn't a billionaire when he acquired a boat for travel. Khalil Shabazz says, we have a lot of Pan-African leaders, but they're not talked about. We need someone like Ali again to promote it. We do have a lot of Pan-African leaders, and they're not talked about, especially in the spaces that are controlled and dominated by who? Westerners, integrationists. It's not even in their best interest to talk about it. Again, we need our own systems. I probably shouldn't even be coming to you live on YouTube. I should be on fan base. But I got to go where my people are. I got to go where folk is. But eventually, again, we have to create our own systems. Black farmers in the U.S. have almost been wiped out completely. And the ones that stand, the ones that remain, the ones that fight to stay vital and viable, they're still facing discrimination. You saw the lawsuit where they finally won and how long that took. But just think, if we had these systems, these global networks and frameworks already in place, they wouldn't have to be, stuck up a creek, worrying about and working only with whatever Uncle Sam wants to throw their way. They could bypass these hostile domestic markets and export directly to African nations looking for high quality products, grains and livestock, because they are. Now, one could make the argument, well, the African countries shouldn't be looking for. Look, it is what it is. We live in a global economic system. All countries are looking around the entire earth, trying to decide what can we get from somewhere else. And if they can get a good deal on it, then they rock with it. So why can't we, over here in the West, why can't the Black farmers create a system where they can export some of their goods? It's only not happening because we're not talking about it and thinking about it. It's time to elevate the mind. It's time to elevate the consciousness. When it comes to tech and entertainment, it's not just about just think, now maybe this is a bad example. If you're on these social media platforms, you can go viral and you can have an audience from anywhere. But just think about tech and entertainment wouldn't just be about going viral in America. If you have the infrastructure and the systems in place. Now, hopefully, you can build those things, especially in social media platforms. But just imagine Black creatives but take it away from the social media. Think about the Black filmmakers. Think about, I don't know if depending on, how long you've been in these YouTube streets. When Spike Lee was making the Malcolm X movie, and it got to a point where Hollywood, the executives said, we don't know if we want this thing to get finished. Maybe we'll pull the funds. Maybe we're not going to keep shelling out the money for this thing to get finished. He had to go to other Black billionaires and millionaires to get it done. But just think if we already had the infrastructure in place where, yeah, it's great that he went to the black billionaires, but just think if we didn't need Hollywood in the first place. There's plenty of movie industry engagements that could have been networks that could have been built and improved in Africa if we was thinking about this. Then we wouldn't need Hollywood. It's a little different today. We don't necessarily, that ain't true. I want to say we don't necessarily need Hollywood, but if we, I mean, they still rocking and rolling because we are only dealing with the systems in this country. We're not networking outside of the country. So imagine if black filmmakers, musicians, game developers, imagine if they had distribution deals directly with BRICS media companies, with the countries of the BRICS alignment or alliance. They could bypass Hollywood gatekeeping and get access to international audiences who actually want their content. I mean, if the Black Panther movie didn't show you that there's a humongous Earth global audience that wants Black creativity, but why let it remain in the hands of the Hollywood executives? We got Nollywood executives. We got Nollywood producers that we can network and link up with. There are plenty of overlapping challenges, or I'll move on to a new topic. There are plenty of overlapping challenges in health, in STEM, in agriculture, where both African Americans and Africans can work together. By working together, we could develop solutions that benefit both sides of the diaspora without waiting on US government to throw us scraps. So again, when I say Pan-Africanism, I mean everyday, realistic systems. Yes, we need to be about the business of reading the works from the great Pan-African leaders and thinkers, but we also need to be about creating everyday systems. If we're not going to be practical and pragmatic about it, then it's just a theory to talk about and discuss. Maybe a little bit harder for us over here in the West. We don't have our own land, but we have some institutions. We need to get into those institutions and help improve them. We got HBCUs and the Black church as well. These are institutions that we've always had, or we've had them for a very long time. We've had them. They've been doing some work, but not necessarily the right work, not necessarily all of the work. But HBCUs could stop waiting on US government scraps and tap into BRICS, tap into ECOWAS, and create research and innovation hubs and innovation labs. Form partnerships with African universities to build tech, to build medicine, to build energy solutions that serve all of our global interests. We could create our own currency, especially if we work on that on independent nation, Republic of New Africa. So, at HBCUs, you can have sickle cell research and treatment centers. We don't really got those. Like the ones we have over here, they're desperately waiting for Uncle Sam to throw out some money at them, and orangutan is shutting it all down. So what's going to happen once he's finished shutting everything down? That money ain't coming back. Even if they vote him out of office in 4 years, that money ain't coming back. So it's either make moves, change the dance, or die out, get left behind. We could create Black-led agricultural hubs, innovation hubs. Both African American and African farmers struggle with land loss, climate change, exploitive trade policies. Joint research centers could focus on drought-resistant crops. And what's that other crop? Because Monsanto was trying to make everybody buy those Terminator seeds. They could improve sustainable farming techniques, Black-owned seed banks to ensure food security and independence from those predatory multinational agribusinesses, Monsanto. I mean, the list goes on, but again, what am I talking about? I'm talking about practical, everyday systems that we can create, especially in today's world of DEI destruction. DEI destruction. That is what we're facing right now. And yeah, I know white women receive more benefits from it than black people, but that doesn't mean we weren't receiving benefits. And since they are taking them away, we need to create our own systems. You're not going to convince orangutan to not dismantle this stuff. So it's time for us to come together in some kind of way. If you at a college, if you at a HBCU, or you know folk at a HBCU, y'all need to get together and start working. Look at your majors. If you're in science, what can you do? What can you work on? How can you update, upgrade? Here we go again. TikTok making me play the puzzle game. So let me see. Shout out Kaleem Shabazz says, people have become spoiled by the West. Oh, yes. People have become spoiled by the West and have become individualists, that rugged individualism I was talking about. Free will to support what the system gives us to support, which is the establishment. Yeah, I mean, free will is a hell of a drug. Rugged individualism is a hell of a drug. And it's something that I don't even know if it's very difficult to give up. And it won't be given up quickly. But we still got to push the envelope, so to speak. We got to push the envelope and work and fight to raise the consciousness so that people do want to at least consider giving it up. Because right now it ain't even a consideration. But look at energy. Like I said, Canada just said, we just won't sell you energy anymore. Lights out. Now the party's over. Many Black communities in the U.S. face environmental racism, pollution, lack of clean water. Flint, Jackson. I think Roland Martin just did a piece on a plastics dumping factory that was being held up, was being paused on how many chemicals they pump into the system and pump into the water. But orangutan took away the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. So now the chemical companies is just going to go full steam ahead, pumping and dumping more chemicals. And where do they do? They do it in Black communities. Again, this is another reason why, yeah, I would honestly advocate for us just reestablishing the Republic of New Africa so we can control our own destiny. But I know a lot of y'all don't feel me there. Kaleem Shabazz says, and shout out to Kaleem Shabazz, the idea to think as a collective so we can have unity like our ancestors had. In South Africa, they call it Ubuntu. In South Africa, they call it Ubuntu. It's a connectedness. And we do need that. We had that for a long time, but the longer we over here in the West, the longer we stuck in the belly of the beast, the more individualistic we become. So, like I said, with this renewable energy collaboration, this is yet one other type of system that we can work on creating, streamlining. And it's a parallel. The problems we got over here, there are problems in Africa with the same thing. So we need to be working together to solve this problem. HBCUs and African engineering schools could work together on solar energy products or projects, microgrids, and clean water filtration systems that reduce dependency on Western aid and big oil interests. You know, Flint still ain't fixed. They're not gonna fix it. They don't care. So why don't we come together and work with HBCUs and engineers? Man, we can work with engineers from anywhere. Who cares where the engineers come from? Yes, I'm saying that we should work with the ones from Africa, but who cares where the engineers come from? Why can't we come together and fix Flint or create some other kind of system? Most likely because Uncle Sam won't let us, but that's because we need the Republic of New Africa to be established. But again, let's be real. How many times have we seen headlines about black inventors revolutionizing energy solutions, only for their innovations to vanish into thin air? I've seen all types of articles and news reports about this. But if we don't have the systems in place, that's going to prop them up. That's why Silicon Valley is so important to America, because technology innovators, they come up with things and they need a place where they can go that will support that innovation. So we need a black, we need a African, we need a Pan-African Silicon Valley. Now, let me see. If we are not in a collective, then Willie Lynch has won. We need to win by joining or creating organizations. The Hip Hop Party is an organization. Shout out to Kaleem Shabazz. If you're still listening on TikTok, thank you. If you're still listening on TikTok, come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. Give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and give a shout out in the chat room to Kaleem Shabazz for presenting such powerful information. Look him up about the Hip Hop Political Party. He's 100% serious. We need this collective. We need this collectivity. Now, I could walk down the pages of history and tell you about Granville T. Woods and his electrical innovations. I could walk down the historical records for Frederick Jones's air conditioning unit, Alexander Miles's improved elevator doors. The list goes on and on. The problem is all of these black inventors, they created these things. Did we have a system in place that would secure their patents? No, we didn't. So we had to go to the Uncle Sam. Now, granted, they got their patents, but a lot of them, they didn't keep them. They weren't able to hold on to them. They had to sell them in order to make money. So, you go into a building and you get on the elevator, you have no clue that we only got elevators because of a black scientist. But if we had our own systems, education, oh yeah, they shutting that down too. They shutting that one down too. So again, what is a system that we can create that's going to help us once they decide we're not giving any more dollars to the education department? We need so yes, we have HBCUs, but that's just for college. K through 12 is about to take a hit. Are we going to create a system that's going to help that? Or are we just going to say, oh my God, now what? We can create mental health and holistic healing centers. We can create AI and fintech for black-owned banking. Why does all of this matter? Instead of just being consumers, because yes, we have the $1 trillion spending power. Most of it is directed at consuming. So instead of just being consumers, whether it be of Western goods, Western foods, Western medicine, Western technology, if we create our own systems, this would put us in control of our own solutions designed for us by us. These partnerships wouldn't just benefit those with passports and money to travel. They would benefit us in our own communities right here, all throughout the West, Canada, America, Mexico, Jamaica, Brazil, and so on. They would create lasting institutions, industries, and infrastructures that uplift Black communities wherever we are in the world. This turns Pan-Africanism from a vague concept of we come from there, we should go back. I mean, the cultural sentiment is fine. I got no problem with it. I got my eye on a couple of countries where I want to relocate right now, anyhow. But I'm also talking about real economic and scientific power. So if Gaddafi created his own system, and he lived within that system, shout out to Khalil Shabazz, if Gaddafi created his own system and he lived within that system for a good long time, no, he didn't live long enough. Yes, they assassinated him. But he created his own system, he worked it, and he established it, and he lived within that system for a long time. If there was any mistake that anybody could say, is just he should have been a little bit more quiet about leaving the US dollar on the side of the street. But that's neither here nor there. But if he did it, if Thomas Sankara did it, if Ibrahim Traore is doing it right now, if Malcolm X was trying to do it, and he got assassinated again, you got to know, you got to realize, if you really about that, death is on the table. But that's why you create the organizations and the system, so that even if they do get you, the system keeps going. That's the one thing about empire. That's the one thing about Uncle Sam. And if you really want to see like what I mean, watch that show Designated Survivor. The one thing about Uncle Sam is he creates systems so that if one leader goes unexpectedly, they got another one to step in. If 13 leaders go unexpectedly, they got 13 more to step in. That's creating systems. And that might be one of the things that we have yet to master. Now, we had it before, long time ago, ancient history wise, we had those kind of systems. We gave up those systems when we gave up our cultures, when we gave up our religions. So shout out, let me see. Gaddafi created his own system. Props to him. Yes, indeed. So now again, so like I said, my goal is to have us thinking about realistic, pragmatic ways that we can recreate or create Pan-Africanism or Pan-African systems. This is not a cause. This is not a struggle. This is not a conversation about just a few people. It's not a conversation about just moving abroad. That's expatriatism. That's an expat. Or repatriotism, when you want to be a repat because you believe, you never were supposed to be taken from there anyhow. Those are great movements. I'm a part of those movements. But that's not what Pan-Africanism is. Or that's not what Pan-Africanism should be and need to be. Pan-Africanism is about positioning ourselves to control supply chains, distribution, and resources that we create, that we benefit from first. And others can join along, but we are the first receivers of the benefits. No matter where we live. No matter where we live. If you really feel like Uncle Sam's geography is the best thing since sliced bread, then have at it. But you still need to join the Pan-African train, or the Pan-African train of thought, the Pan-African ideology, and work towards things that can benefit you and your community. So I'm not here talking about just being a tourist and traveling the world. Those are great things. I have plans to do it myself. But if we move as a collective, Ubuntu, not just scattered individuals trying to make it work alone, we'd already be a developing economy in our own light, in our own right. If we were a country, if we were the Republic of New Africa, if we had maintained the Organization of Afro-American Unity, we would already have set ourselves up to be one of those nations that joins BRICS. with our trillion-dollar spending power. So why not work to make that a reality for the future? This is not about us today. We are only here for a short amount of time. This is about our legacy. This is about our children, our children's children. Now that might be a difficult pill for some of us to swallow. We were brought up on rugged individualism and microwave time spans. All the while, the oligarchs, the elites were brought up on plan for your children's 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 future. That's why they have systems and we have protests. That's why they have systems and we have protests. Now, the Igbo culture provides us with a little gem that says sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. Sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. Now, that's a shout out. That's a hat. That's a reference. That's an allusion to that groupthink that Khalil Shabazz and Afro Marxists was talking about. That unity. Sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. You know, you can pick up a stick, you can pick up a twig and snap it in a heartbeat. Get 50 of them and put them all in a bunch. See if you can break it then. And it was what's the ancestor name? Booker T. Washington that said we can be as separate as the fingers on the hand. So we can have our own ideologies, we can have our own cultures, we can have our own religions, but we come together like a fist. That's unity. That's Pan-Africanism. And we work to create solid systems. So a fragmented population, this sticks in a bundle, is a fragmented Black population. African Americans here, Jamaicans here, Afro Canadians here, Afro Latinos there. They remain weak and they're easy to break. But if we unite strategically, we become a force. Khalil Shabazz says, Honorable Elijah Muhammad was so far ahead of his time as MD Muhammad taught him, Master Fard Muhammad taught him what he needed as a good start to raising a nation. I agree with that. If you look at the blueprint, even when you look at the blueprint of the Republic of New Africa, when you look at the blueprint of the Black Panthers, when you look at the blueprint of the Black Liberation Army, they are all building off of the blueprint that Elijah Muhammad gave us. And the only problem is most African Americans, we always choose integration. We always choose the peace, the soft style leadership. We always choose the turn the other cheek. Now, that's not a dig at Martin Luther King Jr. I'm just saying we've always chosen the easier path. And look what it has gotten us. As Martin Luther King said, I fear I may have integrated my people into a burning house. It's time for us to get out of this burning house and create systems that can have us standing tall once all the smoke clears, because the house is on fire. The house is on fire. So again, I'm not here talking about the theoretical Pan-African dream, but an actual economic strategy. One that we can start now with or without a passport. As I said, Malcolm X was already laying the groundwork for this in his Organization of Afro-American Unity. He understood that our political power shouldn't be confined to the US borders. And for the life of me, it puzzles me when I hear these other leaders, if I am so daring as to use that word, who are trying to gather and garner up this attention for just sitting over here and disconnecting ourselves from all other Black populations. But Malcolm understood that our political power shouldn't be confined to the US borders. It should be leveraged globally. He was pushing for African American engagement with Africa's economic and political systems, with Latin America's economic and political systems. He did this long before it was fashionable. He was up against the wall. He went against the grain doing this. And fast forward to today, and we're seeing real life political movements like that's tomorrow. Tomorrow's March 15th Zoom call meeting with the African Union's plebiscite on African diaspora inclusion, which would establish officially, it's already been established, but it would make it more established. It would make it more functional. Zone 6 of the diaspora. This isn't just about tourism. This isn't just about emotional reconnection. This is about political and economic positioning, platforming, power. So I agree with Afro-Marxists. We need a great Black exodus. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't know that it's going to happen because there are so many of us that are addicted to America. I like to use this. I like to use this formula. It comes up out of, y'all might know who it comes out of. I like to use this mathematical formula. 5% of us are woke. I should say it this way. 5% of us are woke and have the right ideas about what needs to happen for the benefit of the people. 10% of us are woke and have the right ideas about what needs to happen for the benefit of the people. But they choose to misdirect and mislead for the benefit of their own personal pockets. And 85% of us are blind, deaf, and dumb, lost and stuck in the triple stages of darkness. Now, shout out to anybody that know where I got that mathematical formula from. But I say all of that to say, as far as, yes, we need a great Black exodus, but I dare say it's about 5% of us that would make that exodus. It's only about 5% of us that would make that exodus. But again, that's not necessarily, it sounds bad and it feels bad, but in the overall grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily that bad because it still aligns with what Garvey said. I don't need all of y'all. Garvey said, give me 10,000 strong, intellectual, willing and able Black men and women, and we will turn this out. So that great Black exodus, that's what we need. We need about 5% of the Black community, 5% of the Black woke folk. I'll say it that way, not even the whole Black community. 5% of the Black woke folk to do this great Black exodus, and we could get it popping for real. And the funniest thing, the craziest thing is if we did it right, we would line our own pockets just by the nature of being the arbiters of it. But it would be a righteous inflow of income because we're doing it for the right reasons and not just to benefit ourselves. To hell with the people. Shout out to Afro-Marxists. Yes, indeed. The nation of gods and earths. That's where I got that formula from. Peace to the gods and the earths. Peace to all the positive people in the universe. So let me see. We need to tap into these networks as they exist now because they do. They're just so thin based. They're just so small. We need to broaden them and build them up. Because organizations like the African Union, it is here. We're just not working with it. ECOWAS is here. It's been here for a while. They've been doing some things very well. They've been doing some things very not so well, but you know, it is an organization. And the AES is brand new, but they're all making moves. And if you don't know, look up Dr. Arikana Chimbori Kwao. Look up Julius Malema. These are very strong, passionate Pan-African speakers. And it's another brother that's very strong and powerful. We need to read up on them. Now, I'm a strong advocate in honoring and respecting our ancestors wherever they may be and from wherever they came. So Gaddafi, Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, Frantz Fanon. But I'm also a strong advocate of finding out who the Pan-Africans leaders of today are. And Dr. Arikana Chimbori Kwao is one. Julius Malema is one. It's not enough to talk about our historical ties to Africa. It's not enough to talk about our historical greatness and our ancestry and our heritage and our bloodlines. We need to start wielding all of this as leverage for real world benefits. Dual citizenship programs can help with that. Economic trade agreements. Even in the cities that we live in, we can have sister city programs and alignments with other cities on the continent, with other cities anywhere. So again, I had a brother tell me, it don't even have to be just going to Africa. We can have a sister city relationship with Kingston, Jamaica. And these sister city arrangements that's when governments get involved to help build systems for economic trade to help people in both locations. So dual citizenship programs, economic agreements, diaspora investment initiatives, these aren't just abstract concepts. They're active policies being developed and need to continue to be developed. But we need to be on the front line of this. The Akan of Ghana say that the teeth and the tongue may fight, but they stay together. The teeth and the tongue may fight, but they stay together. So even if we have internal disputes, FBA, ADOS, pretendians, we must stay together because we need each other to thrive. Continental Africans, Afro-Canadians, Afro-Mexicans, so on and so forth. Now, Khalil Shabazz says, ECOWAS is yesterday's news. I mean, I want to halfway agree with you, my brother, but I'm going to halfway disagree with you. And only for this reason. A lot of the things that they, ECOWAS really has a bad rap right now. But ECOWAS is only as strong, any organization is only as strong as the leaders. Now, the system that created ECOWAS is not a problem. Just like the system that created the African Union, it's not a problem. It's who's in charge. Now, a lot of the stuff that went down with ECOWAS, especially as it relates to the Sahelian states, went down under, I believe, the Nigerian president Tinubu and the Ghanaian president Akko. I'm gonna get his name messed up. Akko Afo. That's not it. Hold on. Let me look it up. Let me look it up real quick. Nana Akufo-Addo. Nana Akufo-Addo. I can say it pretty well when I'm looking at the name. It doesn't stick to the memory. So a lot of the things that went down under Tinubu and Nana Akufo-Addo. The new Ghanaian president is John Dramani Mahama. John Dramani Mahama. And he's actively taking steps to try and fix some of these tensions, to try and smooth over some of the relations so that ECOWAS can continue to work with the AES. So I say we need them both. And ECOWAS has a job to do, and it can get done, especially with better leadership. And hopefully, John Dramani Mahama is that leader. So, because again, speaking of that, the teeth and the tongue may fight, but they stay together. There's nothing wrong with the AES separating itself from ECOWAS. They needed to, because a lot of the ECOWAS nations, they had their colonizer was England. And so that's a different ball game, and they had to approach things differently. The AES's former colonizer was France. Different ball game, different approaches. And just so you know, like there's a regional block for all 5 regions of the continent. Afro Marxist says idea evolves. What worked then may need to be changed for today. Exactly. I agree with that. I'm just saying, I'm never the one that says throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm always the one that say, you know, what is the other phrase? Eat the meat and spit out the bones. Eat the meat and spit out the bones. There's always something good that can be found and utilized in it in the right way. But let's be honest, while Western, or at least American, passports might still be hitting, orangutan is fast bringing that prestige to a screeching halt, even if it is still hitting right now. But imagine having dual citizenship that lets you move freely through Africa, do business without predatory Western banks in your pockets. Imagine, like, again, Republic of New Africa, if we have our own independent government, because, for instance, when Gaddafi was alive, he was trying to give a loan to the Nation of Islam so that they could further the blueprint given to them by Elijah Muhammad on setting up an independent system. So imagine if that could have taken place. Imagine if that loan did actually occur. You don't need the West. And Gaddafi's loan was going to be based upon the Islamic principles that forbid usury, that forbid, I think they call it riba, which is that enslavement style tax system that the West thrives off of. So imagine if we had a system in place where we could do business and get loans from outside of the West, outside of America, so that we could start our businesses or maintain our businesses or improve our businesses. Like, you know, it's cliche almost to say, well, we can't get loans. Yeah, because we stuck over here, because we stuck inside this system. We're not creating our own systems. Gaddafi was. And Gaddafi was lending money. Uncle Sam stopped him. Uncle Sam said, oh, no, we're not going to let you do that. We'll freeze all bank accounts. Why? Because everything is still was circulating through the U.S. system. So imagine if we didn't have to do business inside the confines of what Uncle Sam can control. These predatory home loans. If we could get our own land, we wouldn't have to work through these loopholes. How many times have we pooled our resources, built a community, made it a thriving, successful juggernaut, only to have white propagandists use some slander, more often than not that of a white woman's fragility, to wreak militaristic havoc like firebombs, police dogs, billy clubs, And then Black Wall Street is gone. And out in Philadelphia, I believe it was called, what was it, the Home Foundation or the Hope Foundation? Where they blew that up. Another Pan-Africanist, Afrocentric, Black nationalist organization. So I'm talking about moving beyond these MAGA borders, mentally, physically, spiritually, where white oligarchs are addicted to the notion of returning this pitiful nation back to an even more pitiful state than it has been existing in the modern era. We need the kind of leverage that you only attain by thinking and acting in a global framework. Move, that was it, not hope, it was move. Thank you, Afro-Marxists. So Afro-Marxist says, I'm a Marxist. I'm in the group, but my ideas and beliefs will be to fight against the system. Okay, shout out. But yes, indeed, I was talking about the Move Foundation, not Hope. I got the words all mixed up. You know, the brain gets scrambled sometimes. But we need the kind of leverage that you only attain by thinking and acting in a global framework. John Africa was the leader's name. Shout out to him. And I think his son is still stomping and doing stuff too. Other communities are already doing this. They're already working outside of, or they're trying to gather themselves so that they can work outside of the US dollar, the US system. We just need to stop acting like our only option is either staying in America's sunken place or moving to Ghana and calling it a day. Now, don't get me twisted. Don't get it twisted. I ain't said don't move to Ghana. I ain't said don't move to Africa. I'll champion you if you do move to Ghana. I know I'm looking at a couple of places. Trust me, trust and believe. On the contrary, I got my eye on a few places myself because I see the writing on the walls. America is the Titanic after it has hit the iceberg. The writing on the walls, this is soon to be a neo-Nazi, neo-fascist state. As long as orangutan in office. So we got neo-fascism for at least 4 years, and he's already promised he ain't leaving. So I personally want to get the out before they fire up the modern day ovens, concentration camps, and bring back plantations. I'm just saying it's not about moving to Ghana. It's not about moving to Africa. It's not about leaving America and then chilling. Because even if I leave, I got people that won't leave. Even if you leave, you got people that won't leave. So I'm talking about the movement, the cause, the campaign. There's always going to be work that needs to be done wherever we lay our heads. Kaleem Shabazz says Gaddafi writes from an Afro-Arab perspective. Yeah. Afro-Marxist says, I know all about the Move organization. That's where I'm from. I'm close to members of Move. Okay. I kind of had a feeling when I saw you, because I think I saw you drop something in there about being in or coming or living in or being from Philly. So yeah. So again, you know, like I said, my hope with this conversation, my hope with this monologue is to get your mind thinking about the positive elements, the positive effects and results if we start thinking about Pan-Africanism in political affairs, Pan-Africanism in economic affairs, not just tourism. But again, don't get me wrong, I love tourism. But we need more than that. Let me see. I might be, yeah, okay. So I thought I had a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't. So I'm not going to deal with that right now. Let me see. If you're on TikTok I appreciate you for joining. I appreciate you for I see like I'm not really that good with TikTok. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I see a couple of hearts, some golden hearts, and some fire signs. So somebody has sent me something or something like that. I got to look at it after the fact. But shout out to Deb, Diane, Emily Burke, Alberto Macias, Bradley Cooper, Harper, Angie, MH, and anybody else who's joined in on TikTok. I would greatly appreciate it if you took a couple of minutes to come over to youtube.com/ at the proper perspective and hit the like button and hit the bell for notifications. But at this part of the show, I'm gonna see if I can pull up the link. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat for anybody that wants to join. Let me see. Not share screen. Let me see. Invite. Okay, so here we go. New link. Now, let me see if this works. Drop this. So the link is in the chat. If you're on TikTok and you wanted to join, I would really request that you come on over to youtube.com/ at the proper perspective. youtube.com/ at the proper perspective. So that you can hit the chat. You can hit the chat. You can hit the you can join. You can get live, so to speak. Let me see. Let me see. So let me see. Now I gotta do some checking. Let me put. So the link is in the chat and it has been pinned to the top for anybody that hits it. Now I gotta look and see when and where and how I let people in once they come along. You will have to bear with me because I haven't done this too often. Okay, I see Afro Marxist. I need to turn it on. Let's see. Okay, so now we got Afro Marxist live on the screen. I wish you should be showing your face, brother, but
well, it's just for security reasons,
word. So
Yeah.
what's going on? What's going on?
No, man, you was talking about Move earlier, and a lot of their earlier principles is hold on, let me plus I ain't wearing no shirt. I ain't trying to get nobody demonetized.
Yeah, we ain't doing that. I ain't even monetized, but we ain't doing that. We don't do the shirtless stuff. So
Yeah. You know what I mean? Hold on, let me throw a shirt on.
okay. So again, we got Afro Marxists coming live on the stage. If you are in the chat room, then you can hit the chat. You can hit the link and get live in here as well. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, please come on over to youtube.com/ at the proper perspective and join in on the chat, join in on the live discussion. We are talking about Pan-Africanism and some other topics too, but Pan-African power moves is that's the main base of the conversation tonight. But we will entertain other topics and ideas. I've, thrown out some things about orangutan and his administration as well.
So anyway, I was saying, man, like you were talking about Move earlier, and a lot of their earlier principles is what basically. I mean, we talk a lot about you know uh Garvey. Garvey said some will leave, some will have to stay, and
Right.
you know for those who stay, there needs to be a network developed. You know what I mean? That connection that you were talking about earlier is something I really believe in. Like we need to connect for those who go to the continent,
Right.
to the people who stay here.
Right. This is true. We do. We have to figure out a way to create those networking systems. And I'm not saying that there aren't any that exist. But like any network, like if you don't know about it, you can't work with it. So like I
Yeah.
know that there are some organizations in Ghana, the Organization of African Americans in Ghana. I think that's the name of it or the title of it. So that's one organization. But you would have to, you gotta, to some extent, you gotta be in Ghana first, clearly. But then once you join the organization, you got to see, well, what system and what's their goal. And
Yeah,
if it's
and
something that
another
you
reason
can
we need to
rock
stop
with, then you
promoting
good.
is we've been
Say it again.
we've been promoting a lot. I notice a lot of black people promote this black capitalist mentality. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I don't like I don't like the black capitalists. I don't like capitalism. Like I don't like capitalism. I don't think capitalism has done anything for black people. I don't think it
I think
can.
only thing it does is it takes exploitation away from the black people, and it causes them to exploit other people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's exploitation in capitalism. So I feel like
Right.
we as black people, as diasporic black people, we need to get away from capitalism. You know what I mean? Like
True.
we need to get away from it because in our nature as a community, as people, we weren't capitalist people. You know what I mean? That was something that the white people, the palm colored people, taught us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it reminds me a lot of like, I don't know if you know are familiar with the history of Liberia.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not an expert,
So
but
Liberia was so back in the 1800s. Liberia. James Monroe, the president of the United States at the time, was he was already seeing like like it's too many of them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's too many of them. We bought too many of them here. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and this whole thing, Civil War, if they want to break out, and this was like at the height of, you had a lot of slave rebellions happening at that time. So Monroe came up with the idea to create a colony in Africa.
True.
And this is where I say, like, we mimic a lot of what was taught to us. He took slaves from America and dropped them off in Liberia. And do you know what those African slaves did?
I do, but go ahead and teach the people for a hot second.
They enslaved the native Liberians. That's
Yes.
like they literally enslaved them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because that's what they were taught. And it's the same thing with us. We were taught capitalism by white people. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so we practice that you know, in our own daily life. So I feel like we need to stop promoting black capitalism. You know, I'm more concerned about what are you doing for your community? How are you giving back to your community?
Hmm.
You know what I
True
mean?
indeed. True indeed. Like I said, I really I got a bone to pick with black capitalism. I can't stand it. But I come from the school of thought that is very much, pro-black, pan-African, Afro-centered, African thought. And so I've always been taught, I've always seen that capitalism is a problem.
Yeah.
So, like, if capitalism is essentially evil because it's the root of exploitation.
Yep. It's
So
it's
it
the
can't
root
be
of
good just
imperialism.
because you throw black
It's
on
the,
top of it.
yeah. It's the root of imperialism, colonialism. All of that is built on exploitation, and all that
Mhm.
exploitation is built on capitalism.
Right. And we've
Yeah.
never had any black leaders, at least none that were worth their salt. We've never had any black leaders that were promoting capitalism.
You know.
This modern day move of black capitalism, it's just for me, it's just another trick. It's just another example of trick knowledge. It's just another example
Yeah.
of the 10%, you know, using the knowledge that they have to exploit, to take advantage of the blind, deaf, and dumb.
I can say all of my heroes, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, they were all communists or capital. I mean, or socialists.
Or socialists. You're right.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, you can like, because I've heard some of the black capitalists talk, and I'm like, and they might. I'm not saying that they would definitely say this, but they'll be like, yeah, but all of them brothers got killed. Yeah, but if you for the people, you gonna get killed.
Yeah.
You might very well get killed if you for the people, but that doesn't mean turn your back on and exploit them.
and and by being capitalist, you are saying like that you are subscribing to that bourgeois mentality,
Right.
that petty bourgeois mentality. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I got mine. It's like the slave. It's like the house slave. You know what I mean? I got mine. I know my place. I'm cool with my place. Master, we sick.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So like that is the issue in black community more than anything. That virus of like they have not only accepted the culture of whiteness, but they have aligned themselves with whiteness. You know what I mean? Look at
Mm-hmm.
brothers like what's that brother name? I ain't calling him a brother. Donaldson.
Donaldson.
The
I may not know
congressman.
that.
The congressman.
Oh, Congressman Byron Donalds.
Yeah, Byron Donalds. Yeah.
Woo, yeah, Lord.
You know what I mean? You look at people like Thomas Sowell. You know what I mean? You look at brothers like what's his name? What's the other? They all look like by Steele, Michael Steele, I think his name is,
Michael
or
Steele.
Clarence
Yeah.
Thomas. They all
Mhm.
they all
They
look
all look
alike.
alike.
Indeed, indeed. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Here we go. I got this. So I had said I mentioned earlier that I was gonna pull up this thing about the Zoom call. So this tomorrow, calling all Africans in the diaspora. The AU ECOSOC. Now I don't know all of the words for this organization, but the secretariat is going to be discussing the diaspora framework endorsed at the 38th African Union Summit. Elected representatives of the African Diaspora 6th Region Provisional Assembly. The diaspora legal framework developed by the ECOSOC defines how diaspora organizations can participate and be represented within the African Union. It sets eligibility criteria and procedures for engagement in decision making, ensuring the African diaspora groups can actively contribute to AU policies and initiatives. This is 10 a.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. tomorrow. So the Bitly is here. I'll try to. I need to get it. I need to put it in the chat or put it in the description so everybody can use it if you want to get on to that conversation. Let me see. Let me see. Here we go. Where we at? Okay, let me pull. Kaleem Shabazz is coming up on stage. What's going on? Peace, brother. But y'all need to check out this. If you're interested in Pan-Africanism, you need to check out this call tomorrow. And I got one other thing about it. Let me see. Where was I? Where was I? Here we go. Balanta. I think we got this. Afro Marxist is back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
You
asked
asked
me
me
what the
what
most
the most
successful
successful
socialist
socialist
was.
was.
Okay.
No, I
No, I
think that
think that
what's his
what's
name?
his name?
Kaleem
Kaleem
Shabazz.
Shabazz.
Kaleem. I think Kaleem asked you that. Yeah.
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 Like
Like
it
it
depends on
depends on
what are you
what are you
referring to
referring
as
to as
success?
success.
Kaleem, can you hear us? Hello, Kaleem. Can you hear?
I can hear you.
Maybe he can't hear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. There you go.
So what
So
you
what you
mean
mean
I
successful?
can
successful?
hear you. You can hear me though.
Like
Like
how
how
you
I
you
can. You
define
can
define
hear me
success?
though.
success?
Hello?
What I'm saying. What I'm saying. Economic success. Economic success.
You
You
said
said
economically.
economically.
Let me see. So Kaleem asked the question, who is the most successful socialist? And Afro Marxist wants to know, how do you define success? He can't answer that question unless he knows how you define success.
as a measure of success. We certainly realize that Gaddafi took people from being one of the lowest to one of the highest.
Okay, you fading in and out. You said Gaddafi.
We are a people that has seen how Africa has been blessed with an intelligent program that actually shared the wealth, that actually gave of the resource money towards the population.
So there's another misconception about Marxism, right? Just because we call it Marxism, Marx himself will even tell you that he did not create the ideas and the science and the revolutionary science behind Marxism. So when people keep calling it a Eurocentric idea, are misinformed on exactly what Marxism is. Yeah, we call it Marxism, but Marxism is not an idea that was created by him. There were countries and people and tribes in Africa that practiced Marxism before Marx put pen to paper.
Okay, what do you say about that, Colleen? You disagree or agree? Okay.
Colleen?
Okay,
I don't know if you can you hear us, brother?
What year did Karl Marx, come along with this whole Marxism ideology?
So 1800 Germany. Yeah.
Okay.
But there were people who observed African tribes that practiced the principles of Marxism before it. Marxist wrote the manifesto before he wrote Das Kapital. So
Okay.
a lot of us black people need to get out that whole if it ain't African, it ain't correct. Because everything originates with us. So that means that it's African by nature. Just because he said it doesn't mean that it's hit. He even said that it's not his idea. It was something that he wrote. He wrote the theory. He put it in paper. But he didn't. There were people in Africa who would practice the ideas of socialism before it was called socialism.
Okay. How you feel about that, Colleen? You understand that? You agree? You disagree? I did just a quick little check. I went over to Google and Chat GPT and sort of asked that question. And I get this kind of response. Many African societies had socioeconomic structures and philosophies that resembled Marx's ideas long before Karl Marx formalized them. So that seems to, that aligns with what Afro-Marxists are saying. While they didn't use the terminology of Marxism, they did present, manifest, practice communal ownership, redistribution of wealth, and class struggle existed in various African cultures. So in that regard, I sort of agree with Afro-Marxists that it's not a European idea just because it was a European that we know who presented the idea in such a way where it took off, and a lot of people, begin to gravitate towards it. Now, me personally, I think I had said something earlier. I get the idea, and I follow through with that. I personally like to choose African cultures, African terminologies. So I would personally be on my own little stick, and I'll go do the digging and be like, okay, so what was it called in Ghana before the white folk arrived? What was it called in Uganda before the Europeans arrived? But that's just me. I would still end up probably promoting, talking about, discussing the same ideology. I just wouldn't align it specifically with Karl Marx, especially after Kwame Nkrumah took his own time to sort of reorient it, because he had his own critique of it. Let's see. Shout out to Babylon Dawn outside the box, who is now in the house. He says Mike messed up. I'm not sure if he's saying about his or one of ours, but shout out for him for joining. Go ahead, Afro Marx.
Yeah, no, I was saying so. Kwame Nkrumah, his critique. So one thing I think too, like we have to understand the Marxists that was practiced in Russia is not the same Marxist that was practiced in Cuba or in China or in Vietnam or in Venezuela or in Colombia. You know what I mean? It's a different style. So what Kwame Nkrumah did was he took the philosophy and the scientific revolutionary science behind Marxism and he curtailed it to Ghana.
Okay. I think I get what you're saying. Marxism as an ideology is not trapped in or encapsulated in just the Russian experience. You can it's almost not an amoeba, but it can be
It's not a monolith.
It's not a monolith, right? So it can be reoriented and reworked for whichever culture, whichever country, nation wants to take those ideas and make them work for themselves.
Mao Zedong did a really good job in adding and not adding, but expounding on Marx's original theory, Marxist-Leninist theory, such as democratic centralism, such as the ownership of property. You know what I mean? Like if you look at even back in like the early '60s, you had people like Angela Davis, people like Audre Lorde, people like Claudia Jones, people like Harry Haywood, who took well, these were early black Marxists who studied Marxism and introduced them to a lot of young black educated people, and also not only young black educated people, but the community as a whole. Look at the Panther Party. Look at the Panther Party. You had breakfast program. You had even look at what the nation did. Our bookstore, our coffee shop, our barber shop. That's communal ownership in the black community.
Okay.
That would be a form of Marxism.
Okay. Again, I don't disagree with you.
I know you're not.
Like I said, I'm anti-capitalism. I'm just saying, like, I'm sort of pro. I'm sort of pro Marxism. I've always oriented myself around the black version of it, so to speak.
Yeah, call yourself socialist.
I would go so far as to say, because what Kwame Nkrumah did, or what it was called I'm gonna mess this word up. It's called conscientianism, and that's not the right word either. Well, an easier way to say it is just to say Nkrumahism, Nkrumahism. But I'm gonna put this word. I'll put this word on the screen. So let me throw that up there. So Nkrumahism or consciencism, only in the idea that, you know, like I said, I do believe that, because what Kwame Nkrumah was doing was reorienting Marxism around specific African cultures and heritage, so that it would be easier for Africans themselves to say, okay, this does make sense. This does align with where we are, who we are, and what we're trying to do anyhow. Because if something is too foreign, then people are going to be like, hey, go on with that. We ain't trying to hear it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, even today, it's one of the reasons why it's so hard to like it's very difficult to get like Islamic Muslim brothers and biblical Christian brothers to work together, because each group is entrenched in, nah, this is mine and this is how we do it, and I don't want to hear that. But when you have somebody come to the table and be like, look, here's how we can fashion this, and there is no violation of either side, then you get them start working together. That's one of the things Malcolm X was doing, trying to figure out how to make sure that we put the elements that's going to cause us to fight back into the closet. Leave your religion in the closet, so to speak. But so again, like, and I'll just read this real quick. Kwame Nkrumah's reworking of Marxism, known as Nkrumahism, was an attempt to adapt Marxist-Leninist principles to the African context. He didn't just copy Marxism, he blended it with African historical communalism, arguing that pre-colonial African societies were largely classless and cooperative. This made Marxism feel more natural to many Africans by rooting it in indigenous traditions rather than as a foreign export. But so go ahead, let me see if Kaleem, you got your mic on? You got your mic right or whatever? So Kaleem says that Gaddafi had to be the most successful, I guess, Marxist, as he shared wealth with the population. Okay, so his Kaleem's definition of success is sharing the wealth. That's how he phrases it.
Never called himself Gaddafi never called himself Marxist.
Okay, so
Gaddafi never called. Listen, so that's the thing. Like Gaddafi never called himself a Marxist, and the idea of success as a Marxist is kind of like oxymoronic, right? Because the idea of Marxism and success is, did you implement those tools in your country? You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about success, right? What Mao did in China, what Ho Chi Minh did in Vietnam, what Castro did in Cuba, those were successes because they were able to overthrow the capitalist government and institute revolutionary socialism. So Gaddafi didn't do that because he still had capitalist society. He didn't have a complete cap of socialist society.
Okay,
And that's not taking away from brother Gaddafi.
Consciencism. That's the word. Okay, so let me see. I think Kaleem might be typing something. Maybe he's typing something as a response. I don't think his mic is necessarily working most appropriately. But let's see. So Afro-Marxist, your definition of success is the overthrow of the government in order to establish the ideology.
Exactly. And I think that's most uh Marcus Leninist uh perspective of success.
Okay, that's interesting. So we cannot have a successful Marxist movement in the United States unless we overthrew the government.
So when I mean
Overthrow
overthrow
the
the
government,
government,
I
I
mean
mean having a
having a
complete
complete
uh
uh,
worker
worker
led
led
proletariat
proletariat
revolution
revolution
here
here
in
in
America.
America. Say that again.
A
A
proletariat
proletariat
revolution
revolution
here in
here in
America.
America. A proletariat revolution. You said we would have to have one? We
We would
need
have
one?
to
Have
have
to
one.
have one. Okay. Now, okay, so define proletariat.
A
A
proletariat
proletariat
is
is
working
working
class.
class. Working class. Okay.
Yeah.
So working class. Okay, I can feel you on that.
Mhm.
Now, so a proletariat, a working class revolution would be needed. Okay. That does that mean like, oh, hold on, let me see. Gaddafi came after Marxism and ruled for 40 years and shared wealth. Okay, so Khalil Shabazz says Gaddafi came after Marx
Mhm.
and Gaddafi ruled for 40 years and shared the wealth.
But
But
now my
now my
response to
response to
that
that
is:
is,
did
did
he
he
have
have
a
a
classless
classless
society?
society?
Sharing the
Sharing the
wealth
wealth
is a
is a
democratic
democratic
socialism
socialism
is
is
what
what
he
he
pretty
pretty
much
much
had
had
because he
because he
still
still
had a
had a
democracy.
democracy.
He
Okay.
still
He still
had an
had an
operating.
operating.
He
He
still
still
operated
operated
within
within
a
a
capitalist
capitalist
society.
society,
So
so
he
he
wasn't a
wasn't a
Marxist
Marxist
because
because
a
a
full fledged
full-fledged
Marxist
Marxist
society
society
is
is
one who
one who
does
does
not
not
participate in
participate
the
in the
exploitation
exploitation
of the
of the
working
working
class.
class. Okay, that's a good. I get what you're saying. Now, um, Kaleem, I'm assuming Kaleem is going to work on a response for that. But let me ask you this. So you're saying if the only way to have a successful Marxist society is to have complete control, or no, a classless society where there is absolutely zero, I don't know,
So
hierarchy.
so
So
here's what it
here's
is,
what it
right?
is, right?
It's
It's
the
the
people,
people,
working
working
class
class
people,
people,
controlling the
controlling the
means
means
of
of
production.
production. Okay, now what does that mean though?
So
So
I'll give you
I'll
an
use
example,
example,
right?
right?
I'm gonna
I'm
use
gonna
an
use an
example
example
for
for
think of the
think of the
1930s,
1930s,
right?
right? Uh-huh.
The
The
sharecroppers
sharecroppers
in the
in the
Black
Black
Belt
Belt
South,
South,
right?
right?
They
They
were the
were the
labor,
labor,
but they
but they
had
had
no
no
means to
means to
control
control
they had
they had
no
no
benefit.
benefit.
It
It
wasn't a
wasn't a
beneficial
beneficial
relationship.
relationship.
They
They
weren't
weren't
what they
what
were
they were
being
being
paid
paid
was
was
not
not what they
what the
what the
crop was
crop was
worth. The
worth. The
means of
means of
production.
production.
You know what I
You know what I
mean?
mean? What they would be right. Okay, so in that historical time, I see what you're saying. Now, if we bring that to today, though, how do we? What's the modern day example that would show the proletariat as owning the means of production?
We
You don't
you don't
you
have
don't
that
have
here
that
right
here
now.
right now. No, I get that.
Okay,
So
for
I'm
example,
asking
right?
you, instead of you working at a restaurant line,
you
you
and your
and your
workers
workers can
own and
own and
control
control
that
that
restaurant.
restaurant. Okay, so like a co-op to
Yeah.
some extent. Okay, so in this co-op or co-op society, like there are some places, there are some states, there are some cities where there is,
There's an NFL team that's just like that.
there are like some cities have the electric company in some cities are co-ops.
Mhm. So
So,
the modern example. Okay, so for another example, right? In the Nation of Islam, they had our barbershop, right?
uh-huh.
Which means that the people owned the dictated and had control of how that barbershop was run, right?
Okay.
They were mutual. It was a mutual benefited relationship, which means that they not only were the bosses of that shop, but they got to set prices and the all of the money that came in were evenly distributed amongst the people that were working there.
Okay.
In some co-op situations, you don't have that. There's still a capitalist element to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like owning a farm and being able to uh, have the people who work there work there, not only do they get free food, but they also have money to provide and to trade with each other. You know what I mean? Like I got a service. You know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean. I'm just trying to get at the notion, the idea, the platform, the goal. If we're going to utilize Marxism as the framework for creating systems or for creating a society. Like I'm a big proponent of, I know for all intents and purposes, what's kind of like a dead movement, the Republic of New Africa, which was a movement that came about after the Black Liberation Army sort of fizzled away. And that may not be the right term to use, but the Republic of New Africa was the movement where they were trying to petition the UN and the United States government to just, section off the country in a similar fashion that, the Civil War itself was fought. The South said, we just want to be our own thing. The Republic of New Africa said, look, this ain't going to never end. This beef is always going to be here. Give us 5 states, give us 7 states, and leave us alone. And we will be the Republic of New Africa. And instead of the United States of America being 50 states, the United States of America would be 47 states, and the Republic of Africa would be these bottom southern 7 states. And we'll just do our own thing. We'll create our own government,
And that
whatever it's
movement
going
is
to be, whatever it's going to be. But we would create our own government, and we would begin, so then you're
and
going
that
to have.
movement is still very prevalent,
Oh, that's
even
good. I
among
mean, that's
even
that's
among
good.
even among Marxists. Um,
Okay.
in the organization I'm a part of, and I don't. Let me say this clear: I do not speak for my organization, but one of the lines is that Black people of the diaspora of here in America uh, have self-determination. That is Marxism.
Okay. You say that's Marxism, that Black people have self-determination.
Mhm.
Okay. So you say
Look
that's
up
Marxism.
here. I got a question. Look up the national question, Lenin and the national question, and just
Lenin and the national question. I think I've
yeah,
heard of that before.
yeah,
Let me see.
and
Lenin. Yeah, I've heard of this before. I haven't looked at it in a while. Um, but because what I was gonna say is, like, to some extent, it's a little bit of an academic exchange or semantics exchange, because I'm like you would say self determination is Marxism. I would say self determination is the Nguzo Saba, coming out of the principles of Kwanzaa.
yeah,
And I would say that that's what Pan-Africanism is. I would
yeah.
say Pan-Africanism is the self-determination, and then moving it and expanding it to say, how do we create these systems so that we can, because we want to self-determine, we want self-government, but how do we create the systems and how do we maintain those systems? So we're talking the same thing. The question is, what organizations do we create or join? What organizations do we work with? And what systems do we begin to put into place? regardless of like you will stick to your guns and call it Marxism or Marxism. I'm sorry. I will stick to my guns and call it Pan-Africanism. I'm assuming
Same
Khalil
language,
has
different semantics. So I
right.
call myself a Marxist, Leninist, Pan Africanist,
Okay.
internationalist, which means that yes, I I grew up in the Pan African community. Like I said, I'm very close with a lot of here in Philly, the Pan African community is huge. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I was a Garveyite for years. You know what
Okay.
I mean? So like yes, we're on the same page. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like
Good. Good.
we on the same page.
Okay.
And a lot
Yeah.
of the thing is, a lot of our Pan Africans brothers and sisters are also Marxist Leninists. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's the
Right.
thing. Emil
Right.
Cabral, Angela Davis, Claudia Jones, Kwame Nkrumah,
Hmm.
Gaddafi. Like you know what I mean? Like all these great Pan Africanists, Thompson Core, Patrice Lumumba. All of
Hmm.
these people they're Pan Africans, but they're also follow the socialist doctrine. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. Because it gives you the vocabulary. It gives you the
Yes,
framework to begin like
to
teaching the
build.
masses
Yep.
and pointing people into the right direction.
Yes.
Now,
Exactly.
Kaleem Shabazz says in Libya, people got part of the oil revenue. Can you see greedy Westerners giving money away to the people for oil revenue? No, no, I can't. I mean, no, I don't think
I
they
mean,
would ever
we're
do
not
that.
talking about. We're not talking about. I mean, of course not. I
Right,
mean, of
right,
course not. Like, I mean, that's that's yeah, that's not uh relevant because of course not. I don't see white people giving up their wealth. Like that's like asking you know what I mean? Like
right.
and that would be impossible because their whole self power empowerment is built off of exploitation and wealth. You know what I mean?
I do. So again, now I'm sort of asking Kaleem Shabazz this question. Like I understand what Kaleem is saying as far as Gaddafi, as far as oil revenues and sharing, because they do that in Arabia also. Like at least there's a story out there. I haven't been able to figure out a way, to fact check it, but there's the story out there. But that like even in Arabia, at least half, if not most of the Arabians that live in Arabia, living real good because they're getting these uh, stipends or whatever you want to call them from the oil revenues. And so that like almost everybody is wealthy, almost everybody is well off. But it's because the ruling family, so to speak, the government is sharing the wealth with everyone. Now I don't I guess my question to Kaleem is, okay, this is true, this is a good thing, but what's motivating you to present this information? That's a question for Kaleem. Never seen that anywhere. Never seen it any. Well, again, okay, so whether it is an accurate assessment of Arabia and Gaddafi's plan in Libya, again, what can we do with this? Like, I'm simply saying we need to create some systems so that we can govern ourselves and manage ourselves. Let me
We
see
have
what
a
they.
philosophy. We say from the masses to the masses. Correct. I said that earlier in the party chat. I mean, in the chat that we're all in, the Facebook, and a lot of people don't understand what that means when I say from the masses to the masses.
From
From
the
the
masses to the masses. Okay.
from the masses to the masses. It's saying from the masses of people of educated people It is our job responsibility to educate and disseminate all this information to the masses. You know what I mean? And organize. We have to organize ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the issue is, we as Black folks are not organized,
This is true. This
and
is true.
we are so divided amongst each other. We're very dogmatic and very practical. You know, very dogmatic and very how can I say it? Um, it's you said something earlier, and it's and I thought of this word. Very uh uh uh. Our people are our people. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, we're stuck in our ways. We're
um,
addicted to. I mean, I was
sectarianism. We are very
say
much sectarianism.
sectarianism. Okay.
Yeah, we very much buy into that sectarianism.
Hmm.
You
But
know,
and I think there's, the problem is, part of the problem is, um I usually will come around to this idea that, the curriculum in which we, the school curriculum, you know we are a product of what we're taught. We are a product of the information that we get. And so whether it's sectarianism or rugged individualism, or what have you, it's, that 5% of the population that's woke, they're woke because they found that information. Now, it may be that there was a spark in them that led them to that information, but they're woke because they found the right information. Whereas the 85%, the blind, deaf, and dumb, you know, they are products of the educational system that was designed to make them blind, deaf, and dumb. So it becomes very difficult to, quote unquote, wake people up. But that's what the job is. The sectarianism. The hope would be, if you do enough talking, if you do enough teaching, if you do enough showing, then they'll begin to, like Malcolm said, they'll put their sect into the closet and join into the struggle, join into the cause, just because we the skin folk, we the kinfolk. Now, Kaleem Shabazz says Islam has different ways of treating people. The West is not on the same level. Okay. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in Islamic treatments, but truth be told, there's some problems with Islam. Now, it may be that the problems come from the people practicing more so than the
well,
book.
I mean, let's talk about. We talk a lot about the transatlantic slave trade, but we definitely don't talk about the trans-Arab slave trade.
I mean, we don't, and I personally, I usually try to stay away from it, but for one basic reason, I'm like, because it may touch back onto the whole sectarianism element of it. Like, we are victims over here in the West. We are victims of the transatlantic slave trade. So everything that we deal with is a product of the transatlantic slave trade. So it would be natural for us to only talk about and only contend with the transatlantic slave trade. Now, that's not to say we should ignore the trans-Saharan slave trade, but it's more so a conversation just to have. For a lot of people, it's a conversation that they just want to have so that they can throw darts at Islam. I'm not saying don't throw the darts. I'm just saying, it's if you're predisposed to having conversations about the transatlantic slave trade, because that's how we exist, that's from whence we come, you're not going to be that interested in the trans-Saharan slave trade unless you just want to throw darts at Islam. especially if you don't, if you really can't, if you're in those groups that say you don't even want to be connected to Africa, but then you want to turn around and talk about the trans-Saharan slave trade, then you just want to throw darts because you really don't care. Now, Kaleem Shabazz says Gaddafi apologized for the Arab slave trade. I mean, that's great. That's all good, and that's good. I'm not saying I personally, me now, I don't know. I can't speak for Afro Marx. I'm not saying anything bad about Gaddafi. I'm just saying we have to at least put Gaddafi in the perspective of he was a great historical Pan-African figure. He's no longer here. We can read his works, but we still have to look to the people who are alive today and work with them. We can't work with Gaddafi. We can work with his ideas, but we got to figure out a way to work with Ibrahim Traore. We got to figure out how to work with the Pan-African leaders who are alive today and trying to create systems.
I'm about to hop off, man.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, but I definitely am glad to take the time out and be able to build with y'all brothers. You know what I mean?
We definitely appreciate it. I know I definitely appreciate it. Make sure everybody, if you're listening and watching, give a shout out to Afro Marxist. I believe he has a channel, so you can check his out.
Yeah, I also I'm a writer as well, so a lot of the stuff I write, you could just check my writings out on Twitter. It's
Okay.
the same Afro Marxist.
Afro Marxist on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah.
On X.
Yeah, formerly known as.
True indeed. True indeed. All right. Well, thank you for jumping on the line.
Yeah, and
And
I'll definitely come back and check out. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
and
indeed.
you can expound more on these philosophical questions. But yeah, you definitely. Oh yeah, you talked about Move earlier. You should read the new book that's out.
What is it? Because I'll check that
It's
out.
called On the Move
Okay. On a
by
move. Okay.
Mike Africa Jr.
Okay. Gotcha. On a move. Mike Africa. All right. I
Yeah,
got that.
that's my guy.
Word up.
A child to move. You know what I mean?
Right.
His parents just got released, and we I was on the front line fighting for the release of them, just like we were on the fight for all our political prisoners. Momia, who is still locked up in prison, wrongfully convicted. Uh, Russell Maroon Schultz, God rest, he transitioned and became an ancestor, but we fought for his his freedom. The Move 9, yeah. So definitely, but check out that in Philly, if you from Philly, everybody knows.
Word.
Everybody knows about Move.
Word.
That's something that we're taught, whether you are a respecter of, like, I remember my man David Banner. He said a line. He said, "This for Tulsa, Oklahoma. This for Rosewood. This for Philly when the cops bomb the whole hood." You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna get off here. I'll holler at you. I'm in the Facebook group chat with y'all. So
Okay, that's what's up.
yeah.
Okay,
All
that's
right,
what's
peace,
up.
brothers.
Peace. So yeah, now if you're listening, again, if you're on TikTok and you're listening, you're welcome to come on over here to youtube.com/at the proper perspective. If you want to join in the chat there, or if you want to join in the Facebook chat group that we have, then again, come on over here and we can send you the links there as well. One of the links that we have, one of the groups that we have, is a group specifically designed and dedicated towards trying to build this hip hop political party. So we really want you to jump on the line, whether you're on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, or what have you. Now, let me get back to this last little section here. Kaleem Shabazz, I'll put his statements back on the screen again. I wish his mic was correct, was working. But he says Gaddafi apologized for the Arab slave trade. I don't deny that. Malcolm is dead too. Obviously, I don't deny that. And he says Malcolm is dead too, and we work with him. Look, I'm not saying don't work with. I'm saying we work with their ideas. We work with their ideas. I'm not throwing anything under the bus that's for the betterment and the improvement of our people, of our situation, of our status. So there's definitely things. I got nothing but good things to say about Gaddafi. I got nothing but good things to say about Malcolm. But I want us to also seek out the living Pan-Africanists, because whatever they're doing, they're following in the tradition of Malcolm, of Gaddafi, of Steve Biko, of Amil Cabral, and so on and so forth. So again, now we've been on here for a good little minute, and I still got the chat open. I still got the link in the chat. It's pinned to the top. If anybody else is hanging around and trying to jump on and share some information, I will let you do that. If not, I may start to wind down this whole thing and get ready to play my outro music. Thanking everybody for joining in. Trying to see now if Khalif Shabazz, if you got anything else you want to say. Again, if your mic ain't working, then you can drop it in the chat and I'll throw it on the screen. But if not, I'm gonna get ready to close up shop for tonight. I thank everybody for listening. I thank everybody for joining in and participating. Where is? So I'll wait a second and see if there's anything else to be added for the benefit of the people. And I'm getting ready to share my screen. So if I don't see any other comments, I'm gonna get ready to roll on about it here. Share the screen, turn up the mic, and let me hit the outro. Again, thank you everybody for showing up, paying attention, listening, joining in, chatting, talking, leaving comments. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications for the next one. And we're gonna get ready to float.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Break it down with the proper perspective.